Alright, it's time for another top 10. This time I'm talking not movies, but directors. Top 10 favorite horror directors. And the order doesn't really matter, so don't pay attention to the number. But my number one is probably my number one. My favorite horror director working today, at least. There's not a single bad movie, in my opinion, from this guy. So, top 10 favorite. This is a patron request from Jeanette, so thank you. And 5 quick honorable mentions. What I'm going to do is just say the names, and then, of course, talk about my favorite movies from them and the ones I've seen. I haven't seen every movie from every director I'm going to talk about. So, first honorable mention will be Lucio Fulci. My favorite movie from him, of course, is Don't Torture a Duckling, a Giallo film from 1972. And of course, I like his other movies in the 80s, like City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, and the House by the Cemetery is okay. But he's got quite a few misses, so he couldn't make my top 10 because I've seen a lot of his bad movies. So, and he didn't always do horror movies. I realized that he did a lot of like westerns and other genres before he got into horror. Horror was like the genre he started later in his career. And so, next honorable mention is going to be Mike Flanagan. My favorite movie from him is Hush. I haven't seen his TV shows that he's been making recently that everyone keeps talking about, but I love Hush. And of course, Doctor Sleep is a great sequel to The Shining. And I also saw some of his other movies like Origins of Evil, the Ouija sequel, whatever. That's definitely better than the first one, Ouija. And Oculus Absentia, I'm not that big on, but a lot of people love it. So this is a solid director. Everything he does is okay to amazing. There's nothing he's done so far that I've seen that's dog shit or anything. And then another quick honorable mention will be Lee Winnell. He's only done like 2 or 3 movies so far, directing wise, but he's wrote a lot of stuff. But the ones he's directed are amazing. Like Upgrade is my favorite, but it's probably not even a horror movie to most people. But it's a fantastic movie. Even if it's not horror, you should check it out. But he also did The Invisible Man recently. I wasn't high on it the first time, I'll be honest, but the second time I really liked it. My next honorable mention will go to Brian De Palma. He has done all kinds of things outside of horror and thrillers, but the horror movies that he's done, like Carrie and Dress to Kill, are great films. But my favorite from him is not really a horror movie, but I'll count it, and that's Blowout. It's more of a thriller, but I love it. So Blowout is my favorite from him, but I also love Body Double and Dress to Kill is amazing. And I like Carrie too, but I'm not as high on it like other people. And final honorable mention will go to Fede Alvarez. He's only directed 2 horror movies that I know of, and both of them I think are phenomenal. You got the Evil Dead remake, which is one of my favorite remakes of all time, and also Don't Breathe. I love that movie. I don't get what people's problem is. I like the sequel too. He didn't direct that one, but he wrote it, and he's writing the upcoming Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel. So that's the only reason why I'm looking forward to it, is because it's his writing. But I've seen a trailer and it looks like it's just going to be Halloween 2018 all over again. So that kind of worries me, but he's writing it, so that gives me a little bit of hope for it. So Fede Alvarez, final honorable mention. Now let's get into my top 10. Number 10 goes to David Cronenberg. This guy's done a lot of movies, over 40 films on IMDb or Letterboxd. But my favorite from Cronenberg is The Dead Zone. I think this is one of the best Stephen King film adaptations, and I just think it's perfect. And I love The Fly as well. That's probably my second favorite. And I really like The Brood. Dead Ringers is good, but it's not very rewatchable, but great performances in that one. And also Videodrome. That's another one. And Scanners. Who could forget Scanners? Great head explosion in that film. So yeah, he's a good, solid director. So of course he's gonna make my top 10. I haven't seen everything, but I just recently watched Shivers and Rabid again, and those movies very low budget but still enjoyable. Number 9 goes to a French director, and that is Aja. Alexandre Aja. He wrote 2 movies that I absolutely love that he did not direct, and I'll mention those real quick. P2, underrated Christmas movie, Christmas horror, of course, and the Maniac remake, which might be my favorite horror remake. Love that film. He wrote it, so gotta shout out those movies. But the ones he directed, Crawl recently, a very fun alligator flick. But my favorite from him is the Hills Have Eyes remake, another remake that would make like a top 10 horror remakes on my list. Like, it's just a brutal, fantastic remake that I prefer over the original, Blasphemy, whatever. But he also did the Piranha remake, and that's another fun one, very gory. And he did Horns. I have not seen Horns. He recently did Oxygen. That's on Netflix. I tried to watch it, but it just wasn't in the mood, so I turned it off. And the High Tension, I think that was his first one. Really controversial, extreme film that's worth checking out. And but yeah, that's a terrific slasher with a very divisive twist. Number 8 will go to another modern day horror director, and that is Adam Green. My favorite from him is Hatchet. It's the first one I saw, and I love all the Hatchet movies. Some more than others, of course, but I just think they're all fast paced, gory, fun, throwback to 80s slashers kind of films. Victor Crowley is brutal, and his kills are amazing, but technically, I think Frozen is his best movie when it comes to you know writing and directing. I thought that movie was fantastic, but if I have to choose one to watch over and over again, I'm going to go with Hatchet. That's my favorite from him. He also did Digging Up the Marrow, which is an incredible found footage, like mockumentary film. That one's very love it or hate it, but I really like it. So check that one out. Haven't seen Spiral, so I can't talk about that one. And he also did like a anthology, very silly, over the top anthology movie called like Chillerama. He did one of the segments in that one. He didn't do the best segment in that one, but his segment's not the worst. It's like the Frankenstein one where Kane Hodder plays Frankenstein. So yeah, that one was okay. I'm not crazy about that one, but the Hatchet movies and Frozen are what puts Adam Green on this list for sure. Number 7 will go to Tobe Hooper, my favorite from him being a film that a lot of people say he didn't direct, but he's credited as the director, so I'm counting it. Poltergeist is my favorite from him. Whether he directed it or not, I don't give a shit. But second favorite, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I just reviewed that recently, so if you want to hear my thoughts on it, go check that review out. Of course, he did the sequel, which is very fun, over the top. Life Force, I liked. And a lot of people are not crazy about his other films like Eaten Alive or Salem's Lot, it seems, but I really liked those movies. I don't want to say really liked, but I liked them. They're okay. And he also did The Funhouse. That's another good movie. I really like that one. So that's probably like my third favorite film from him. Next up will be Wes Craven, another hit and miss director. He's done some bad movies like The Hills Have Eyes 2. And The Hills Have Eyes 1 I wasn't even crazy about at first, but I'm starting to like it a little bit more. But my favorites from him are, of course, Nightmare on Elm Street. That's my favorite. And then Scream 4. I prefer Scream 4 over Scream 1. Call me crazy, I don't care. And I also like The Last House on the Left and The People Under the Stairs. And Shocker is also bad but entertaining. Next up is a director who did a lot of Empire Picture films, and that is Stuart Gordon. His movies that he did in the 80s are why he's on this list, because the 4 movies, I've only seen 4 of like the 20 films he's directed, but the 4 movies that he's directed that I've seen are all fantastic. You got Reanimator and From Beyond and Dolls all competing for my number 1 spot. I love all 3 of those movies. It's just full of fun characters and phenomenal effects. And then Castle Freak is the other movie I saw from him. All the other ones I haven't seen yet, but I will someday. So, like Dagon, Dagon, whatever it is. Haven't seen that one yet, but those 4 movies I mentioned are amazing. So check those out and you'll see why I have him on this list. Number 4 will go to Dario Argento. My favorite from him right now is Deep Red, but Suspiria could easily be my number 1 as well. Both amazing films that everyone should watch. And he's done all kinds of giallos, or gialli, or whatever the plural for that is, gialli. But he's done other great films like Inferno, Phenomena, and Trauma, a more underrated one because a lot of people don't seem to like that one, but I like it. And he did Tenebrae, Opera, Bird with the Crystal Plumage, Cat of Nine Tails. These are all the ones that I've seen that I like. Every movie from him that I've seen, I like, at least. I like to love, not a single one that I hate. So that's why he's on this list, but I haven't seen all of them. So the ones I've mentioned are the ones I've seen. Basically everything from the 70s to the 90s I've seen from him, but more modern day stuff, I haven't seen it. But he's got a new movie coming out called Dark Glasses I just heard about, so I'm curious to check that one out. It looks like he's going back to his roots and he's making another giallo, so I'm curious to check that one out. But yeah, number 4, Dario Argento, a fantastic Italian horror director. Number 3 will go to John Carpenter, of course my favorite being Halloween, and then The Thing, just 2 masterpieces from him. He's a very hit and miss director also, but he's got a lot more hits than misses, and a lot of good movies outside of the horror genre. So this isn't a director who can only like make one kind of movie. He makes all kinds of different films. He's got Big Trouble in Little China that I really like, and he's got the more actiony like Escape from New York films and Escape from LA. New York being way better than LA, but just a lot of good movies. He did Christine, The Fog, just great films. So he had to make the list. Number 3, John Carpenter. Number 2 goes to a director who's only made 2 movies, but if he keeps cranking them out like this, and they're all of this quality, he will easily be my number 1, and that is Ari Aster. He's made 2 movies. One is a fucking masterpiece that is one of the best horror movies of the last like 20, 30 years. Hereditary. Absolutely adore that film. I just think it's absolutely masterful. I love it so much. I've seen it like a dozen times. And then he did Midsommar next, like the year after. And at first, I wasn't as high on it, but I've seen it a few more times, and now I absolutely love it. Midsommar is a great follow-up to Hereditary, and I heard he's making a 3rd movie, but I don't know if it's going to be a horror film, but I know like Joaquin Phoenix is attached to it, supposedly. I hope it's a horror movie, and I hope it's amazing also. So number 2, Ari Aster, keep it up. Number 1 goes to James Wan. I absolutely love this director. Everything he has done is great. Even his action movies, he did Furious 7, which is probably the best in that franchise, and then he did Aquaman, one of the best DC films, and now he's going to do Aquaman 2, but his horror films are all really good to amazing. My favorite now being Malignant. Absolutely adore this film. I think it is unique and risky, and that 3rd act is just so fucking awesome. So check out Malignant if you haven't seen it. But my second favorite from James Wan would be Saw, and then the Conjuring films. I love Conjuring 1 and 2. I think they're both equally good. All very highly rated on my Letterboxd. And then he did the Insidious movies, Insidious 1 and 2 at least. And Insidious is really good, and Insidious 2 is a bit of a drop off from part 1, but still a really solid film. And then he did, of course, Dead Silence, which I think is underrated. It's like very atmospheric, and it has a really good twist. One of my favorite twists in horror. Besides Malignant. Now I would add Malignant to that list. And Saw, like every movie he does, seems to have a really great twist, at least when he's working with Leigh Whannell, who was the writer of some of those movies. So Dead Silence, another great one. And Death Sentence with Kevin Bacon, I'm not sure if that really qualifies as horror. It's like a revenge movie, but it's a fantastic movie as well. So check out Death Sentence with Kevin Bacon if you haven't seen it. So number 1, James Wan, my favorite director of horror. So yeah, what's your list? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And remember, it's all an opinion. You don't need to get butthurt about it.